Good morning, everybody. We are going to be right into our third class of eBay fundamentals, and we're going to talk about pricing and our profitability with pricing. I'm not going to get into heavy numbers on this because we have a bookkeeping week that's going to be for that. This is going to be more about how our pricing affects our business and how we come to the conclusion of pricing. I'm of a pretty big mindset, and everybody in the group knows this about me, that I think people get too caught up in pricing. I mean, it's a very important thing, but if we sit and we dwell about our pricing and we worry about our pricing, it's going to eat away our profitability in the end. So we really should be doing our research up front. We should know our items, but of course we all are new at one time or another. So sometimes we have to price comp, and I still price comp, but I just don't get stuck in the weeds trying to find my prices. So I think that that's kind of the secret method, is just not letting yourself get too tied up in it. And for sure, not creating new death piles of, hey, I need to research this. Hey, I need to price this, because lots of times that's our very best quality items. And then they just end up in a pile to research or in a pile to get a better price on. And it really comes down to confidence, because that's what it always was for me. For the longest time, if I get an old Victorian piece or something, I always question myself, like, is this good? Is it not good? Is it authentic? What date is it? I don't know how to list it. And it was always that higher dollar volume, type of things that I question myself on. And while I don't have that anymore, I do understand where people come from, because if we aren't sure, then we don't want to list it wrong, right? And we kind of need to get over that fear of being afraid of being wrong when we're pricing our things, because sometimes, guess what? We're going to be wrong, no matter how much research we do. So we got to think to ourselves, what's the worst thing that could happen when I put this item up? The worst thing that could happen is we underprice it, we still make money, and somebody else gets a good deal. So if that's the worst thing that can happen to me, I'm moving on with my life, right? So there's some key points that I like to bring up when we are talking about um, pricing models, and basically the core concepts that I talk about with pricing. And the first one is, don't get stuck on exact matches. So within eBay, if I have, this morning in the group, we talked about this cameo locket. So we looked at the cameo locket in the picture, and then I start broad. So I will search for cameo locket. And then sorry about my dog. And then we can go down from there, whether it's gold, whether it's old, whether it's shell, no matter what kind of actual cameo locket it is, we can then search for that. So I'm not stuck on the fact that this has to be the exact cameo locket that is in the picture or that I have, because it doesn't necessarily matter. The key indicators that might matter is it shell? Is it gold? Okay, what kind of chain is it on? That's kind of where we came down to that is. If it's shell or gold, that might be an indicator of value. So then we need to adjust accordingly. But when it comes right down to it, what we found was most of these things that looked exactly like her lockets were in that $30 to $40 range, right? So it wasn't worth spending a bunch of time on. So while we're first learning to research and stuff, sometimes we do have to take that time to go in. And when we search in eBay for our item to price comp, I am pulling up here. We can actually do this exercise. I will just show you what I would do or something. We can just make up something. So if I was looking up like this cameo locket necklace, like I did earlier today with the group, I'm literally just putting in cameo locket necklace minus lots, because that's really all I need to know at that time. And then I go to the left-hand navigation and I'm putting under solds and completed, and that's it. And then I would search for from high to low, which I did. And this is where I'm getting into the ones that look similar, right? And as I scrolled down, I was like, okay, what kind of chains are demanding more money? What kind of photos for them are demanding more money? And is mine better or not as good as those? And that's how you come up with your price. And it's really that simple. Now, when I get down, and that's all I'm typing in right here. If you do clothing, you may want to type in your clothing item and narrow it down in the left-hand navigation for your size, because that might be important. Just like materials are important with jewelry. So then you go over here. Maybe you need to do it by used. That would give you a more accurate accurate indicator. So I don't really necessarily change this part of it because I don't think it really matters. But I'm spending less than 10, 15 seconds a piece if I have to go this far into pricing an item. So let's say I had a generic gold herringbone chain. Literally all I'm typing in is gold tone herringbone chain. Gold tone herringbone chain. Minus locks, because I don't want a whole lot of them, because that's not what I got. Well, is mine 14 karat gold? No. Okay, no again. So then I'm realizing, like, okay, I pulled up the ones that are real gold. Mine isn't. So I quickly get into the part that isn't, right? So now we have gold tone. Okay, mine's gold tone. Wow, maybe it's worth $76. Oh, that one's got a name brand on it. So probably not. Mine's not name brand. Scroll some more. Oh, there's a good one. It's a set, and mine's not. And it's a Monet. Darn it. So I just keep going. Is mine multi-chain? No. Was mine Napier? No. And you just keep going down, right? Ask yourselves those questions. And then if I get into some generic ones, like here, okay, this one has a pear rhinestone. Okay, mine doesn't have rhinestone. Mine's just a chain. But this one is etched and it's flat and it is signed, but it's not like a big name. So, okay, well, maybe mine's similar. Mine looks like that. There's a delicate one with 3 pieces. So you see what I'm going? I'm just asking myself those questions. You know, is my name brand like that? Does mine look like that? Is mine as big as that? Is mine as long as that? Right? And then I come to the conclusion, okay, here, look, no name brand, flat, and about the same size. Okay. So then I'll keep going just a little bit just to see. Oh, it looks like they're all falling in that $25 range, right? So if I hadn't gone and done it this way, maybe I would have looked at it and thought, wow, that looks really nice. That's a $39.99 necklace. But if I don't actually go in and price comp it at least once, because once you've done it once, you may not need to do it again. I may have way overpriced this and realized, wow, priced myself right out of the game. Now, if we go here, we go back to the unsolds, we uncheck this box. So there was 230 gold tone herringbone necklaces, but that included the signed ones, and ours isn't signed, right? So we have to keep that in consideration. How many are listed? I bet a lot. Over 1,300, which means it might be a hard sell to begin with. So then what happens if we are overpricing and we realize it's super saturated, right? Now we're in real trouble. So that's why it's so important that we are not overpricing our items, because if we're overpricing our items, we're getting ourselves knocked right out of the park to begin with. And then we're at a disadvantage right from the beginning. So I also use price buckets. People ask all the time what price buckets are. So in my mind, which this is where these things are formed, scary enough, right? Is in our minds, and we're going, if I have a rhinestone or a really pretty, decent size brooch, but it's not signed anything special, and it's not, really extraordinary, to me, it's a $29.99 brooch. I've made that price bucket in my business model, $29.99 brooch. If it's smaller and doesn't really have any sparkle and nothing really going for it, it's a $26.50 to $28.50 brooch, depending on, what number my finger decides to hit at the time, I guess. And then the next step is that $29.99. And then if it's really got some, it's got some indicators of like bling, it's got some, maybe it's name brand, but nothing special. And then maybe it goes to that $34.99 bucket, right? But to get to the $39.99 and above bucket, it's got to have something really going for it. It's got to have a good name brand. Usually, if I'm going to price something too high, it's got a price comp behind it that I can refer back to, or it's really good. Like we've all held that item, whether it's a shirt with that material that feels buttery and it's amazing, or whether it's a huge, big brooch that really speaks to you and you just go, you know what, this is a $70 brooch. And here's the beauty of it. We can try for that $70. Doesn't mean we have to hold on forever waiting for that $70, right? So we could try for the $70 and then reevaluate. And it's always okay to shoot high as long as you have a really good aged inventory markdown process. Because if you don't, then all of a sudden you're sitting on this, and then 6 months later you're like, wow, this was really nice, so I didn't sell. And you're like, because I was out of my mind and overpriced it, right? But if you have an aged inventory markdown system, which I think is one of our weeks coming up, then it will naturally come down to market price, and you'll know what that is because it will sell. It's as easy as that. So having that in place is a really good idea, or you can always knock it down. Also, you need to be willing to take offers, right? Because if we shoot for the stars, and let's say we priced it at $40 because we weren't sure, somebody offers us 30, and all we see is that percentage off when we're evaluating the offer, and we're like, well, that's way off of what I was asking. But maybe what you were asking wasn't realistic, right? But what is realistic is the cash they're willing to give you right now. So we have to keep that in mind when we are evaluating our offers. So I wouldn't say all offers. I do not accept all offers. I accept most offers because in my head, I'm envisioning somebody handing me cash every time I get an offer. Somebody is standing there with cash in their hand saying, here's some cash for this, used item that I have. And if that cash isn't enough and I would rather keep that item because I visualize it in front of me, would I rather keep that necklace or do I want that cash? And sometimes I'd rather keep that necklace. That necklace is a better commodity to me. However, a lot of times we get too precious with our items and we think we're always taking those offers for tomorrow instead of today mindset. My offer mindset is for today's cash. Is that going to work for my cash flow today? Or is that I don't take offers and I don't price things on the hope of tomorrow. I'm always pricing things for today because today's what matters to my pocketbook, right? If I am going to counter, there's nothing that irritates me worse than like if there's 30, no, there probably is. I'm probably lying. $39.99 item and somebody offers them 30, maybe 33, and they counter back at like 35. Is that $2 really that important to you on that item? Because now you may lose the sale completely because they're going to think you're petty. Maybe they don't want to play your game and they're like, whatever, I gave them a good, fair offer and they're doing that to me. I don't want it now. Right. So I always try to think of that difference of what I would counter. So let's say they offer me 30 on a $50 item. And you better believe there's days where I've taken it. And some people think I'm crazy for that. There's days I'm definitely taking a $30 offer on a $50 item. Depends on what the item is, depends on the day. So, and I think that item's really actually really good. And it's worth every bit of that $50. Before I counter back, let's say at 40, I'm visualizing that $10. I'm not visualizing the $30. I'm visualizing that $10 because that's the difference. Is that $10 bill that important to me right now? And sometimes maybe it is. But if it's not, I'm taking the $30. And if you're so worried that you might lose money on that item, then you have a sourcing problem, not an offers problem. Most of my items, if my average cost of goods is $4.50 or $5, $30 turnaround ain't great. That's not necessarily what I'm going to go for, but it's decent, especially if it's same day. So people get really hung up on the offers when it's the same day or the next day after, because I just listed it. I might get full price. Well, you might, or it might end up in your markdown sales and you might, be sitting on it 6 months from now. That could happen. Easy. And then we really would have wished we would have taken the offer. So I get offers the same day a lot. And if that item isn't really special and really nice, I take them a lot of the time because now I just turn it over in a day, right? That's the same as if we do live auctions. I'm flipping those things in a day. There hasn't been a day in my eBay career in years, literally at least 2 years, that I haven't sold at least one item I listed that same day. I list the same day. I list the same and I sell the same day lots of times, lots and lots and lots. And I don't get that knee jerk, like, oh my gosh, I priced it wrong. What did I do wrong? Oh my goodness. I have to go look this up. I have to go look up the price comps right now. I got sniped. I don't. I think, yes, I turned my $4 or $5 into $30, $40, $50 super quick. That is a win to me, right? Have I ever been sniped? Yep, sure have. Do I learn from it? Yeah. Do I worry about it? Nope, absolutely not. I move on. I made my money. Good for them. They're going to make some money. They'll come back and shop my store again. We are all happy, right? I don't get hung up on it. And offers are a huge part of my business. And like I said, I don't take all of them, but I'm not petty either. When you're sending offers, I don't know about you guys as a buyer, but I would definitely buy on eBay if you are selling on eBay. Because as a buyer, you will notice certain things that are very irritating. When I get those whole whopping 7-8% offers, I'm like, what? Ooh, I got a 7-8% offer. Oh, I don't even open those. Like, they're almost insulting. Like, okay, that's great. Glad you're willing to play the game. If I get a 25% off offer though, it makes me think again, like maybe I do want that lot. Maybe I do want that book. So we have to think, what gets your attention? 10% really doesn't get anybody's attention. If I have a markdown sale on of like 30%, sometimes my offers are only 10% because it goes on top of it. But most of the time, if I don't have, I mean, I send out 25, 30% off offers all the time if I don't have a markdown sale going on. So that gets people's attention and they convert better. Those people that are watching your items are already interested. They're already almost your customer. So you send them a big offer, it's attractive to them and they're much more likely to pull the trigger. You send them an 8% offer, lots of times they're turned off and they're just moving on down the road. We also have to send our offers quickly because otherwise they already bought from somebody else, right? So people that stack their offers to be able to send them out for slow days, good luck with that because most of the time they've already gone on and purchased what they wanted. They're gone. They were somebody else's customer that was willing to send them an offer right away, is usually what happens. So I just don't price for tomorrow and I don't do offers for tomorrow. I do it all for today. Also, when I hear, well, I priced this at this price and I had to add some on because, I'm going to have to send an offer or I'm going to have a markdown sale or I just have to leave myself that room. While I understand that thought process, the guy that's actually pricing at market or they're undercutting the market just a little bit, they're going to get those sales every day of the week. And I want all the sales. And once you start feeling the volume of selling a lot of items on eBay, you quit worrying about these things. You price at market and you can price up if it's really nice. Like we've all had those items that like, this is really good. Price them up then, but you got to be willing to come down too, or you might have that wonderful item forever. People always say, well, mine's rare. Mine's unique. I can honestly say in the years I've been selling jewelry on eBay, which hasn't been very many, I think I went full time in 2022, right? So I'm only on getting through year 3, is that I have very few actual rare items, maybe a handful, maybe 10 items since I've started selling that were considered rare. So we think our things are super special and maybe 10 super special things. Right? But we lots of times want to think our things are really super special, but they're really not. If you can go out and buy them on eBay, if the general public can go out and buy that item on eBay today and have like 2 or 3 choices, it's not, right? It's really not because there's at least 2 or 3 of them available on eBay right now for anybody to go purchase. So I think we just our visions of what's rare and special get kind of skewed. So there's also the point, and I run into this with people, I have lots of store stalkers, which it's fine, but they come back to me and say, but you priced at 40 and you're telling me to price at 30, which is why I don't use my store as an example a lot. If you are a big niche store, and I'm not considered a big store, but I have like about 3,000 jewelry items, and you are niche down and you provide good service and you're moving a lot of items, if I have something really good, I can ask a little bit more for it and I usually get it because I have the experience behind me. I have the feedback behind me. I have 3,000 items of the exact type of items. So it's very niched. So it's like a specialty store. If you're selling all one-offs or you're selling, and even clothes, you can do that too, to a certain extent. If you just sell jeans and you have a pair of really nice jeans, you may be able to get more money out of those jeans than I could, right? So you have to take that into consideration. Sometimes we scroll the solds and we go, wow, how did they get that much? I want that much, but it's an outlier, right? We don't know the whole backstory to that. So maybe they are really well known. Maybe they are specialty store. Maybe they have a huge store. And sometimes people just get lucky, right? So I like to make my own luck. I don't like to depend on it as, a fluke thing. So if you're going to hope for luck and just hope like, well, this one outlier got $70, so can I? Well, maybe. But if you don't know the whole story, or maybe they just got lucky, that's not how I want to run my business. And my business model isn't going to fit that. So I want to go with the most. And maybe they, like I said, maybe they did get lucky. I don't want to work on luck. I want to make my own luck. And the way I make my own luck is pricing correctly according to the market or according to my store. Right. So I do price according to my store more than the general market anymore. But for the first couple of years, I priced exactly according to market. So just keep that in mind if you're price comping, when you see somebody consistently getting higher prices than what you're able to. A lot of times it's because That's the position they're now in, and that's the position they put themselves into. So when we are thinking of our profit planning, when we are pricing, another thing I hear is, but I paid this much for the item. That doesn't have anything to do with how we price our item. And that sounds kind of silly and counterproductive, but it's true because somebody else on eBay doesn't give a hoot what you paid for that item. They don't care, right? They don't care what you paid for it. So if you overpaid, that doesn't make any difference on what you're going to get back out of it. So that's a sourcing problem, not a pricing problem. So just consider, if you're constantly having to ask yourself, am I going to lose money on this? You're sourcing wrong and you need to work on it. It really doesn't have anything to do with pricing. You know, the market's going to be what it is, no matter what you do with it, no matter what you paid for an item. So the money's made on the buy. Every single time, I will say it over and over and over, the money's made on the buy. You buy incorrectly, your money already, your profit margin already shrunk. And it happens to all of us. But in my head, when I'm having to either source or price, I always remember, or if I have to relate back to a cost, it's my average cost of goods, not what I paid for that particular item anyway. My average cost of goods is usually between $4 and $5.50. So it doesn't matter what I paid for that one item because it averages out, and that's what I need to keep in mind anyway. So I end up having to be in a volume model. Yes, I could be a specialty model, but for lots of reasons, I have to move volume. So anytime I start to pull back on the things that create that volume, I end up in problems, a cash flow crunch, which is not fun, right? But when the spigot's on and I am just selling, I'm not sitting there thinking like, oh, that went for 33% off of my asking price. Or, oh no, that went for, that guy got a really good deal because he qualified for my free shipping too. I don't sit and nitpick it because my money is flowing in the door, right? So as much as it is, yes, I get the whole work smarter, not harder thing. But on eBay, a lot of the big sellers that are making lots of money are volume sellers. So sometimes we have to put ourselves into the position that we're in. If you are a small boutique seller and you're only selling the best of the best, you're going to have a different strategy than me, right? So we have to know what our strategy is first, so that then we can do, like things like the pricing and sourcing accordingly. So just remember that the money's made on the buy. So I like the quick turn sellers. If I get an offer right away on something I just listed, I usually don't sit and have that whole holdout mentality. I would say if I get an offer of 33% or better, it doesn't matter when I listed it, I'm taking it. I don't even really sit and think about offers until they're over the 35% mark. Then I'll consider it and I'll think about it. And depending on how long it's been listed, depending on if it's good, sometimes we look back and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I listed that. And you better accept those offers because they may not come again. Like sometimes I feel very fortunate and lucky to get an offer because I shouldn't have listed those cluster bead earrings to begin with, right? So if it's under 33%, 35% offer, I'm not even looking. I'm just accepting. That's me. That doesn't mean that has to be for you, but you need to have those numbers in the back of your head, what you can automatically accept. And that also kind of plays into your offers because if you would accept 35% off, why wouldn't you send a 35% off offer? Right? If you'd accept it, depends on the day, but you have to know what those numbers are in your head. eBay pushes active stores. I really believe that. So if you're constantly sending offers, you're constantly accepting offers, you're constantly running markdowns and coupons and all those good things, I feel like we get better placement, right? Same with promoted listings. We're going to do a whole thing on that. We'll go over promoted listings because I'm a believer in if nobody can see your items, nobody can buy your items. And unfortunately, it just is what it is on eBay right now. And I need them to see my items. So unless you have items that you're typing in an exact item, that's what they're looking for, and yours is going to pop up, I got to push it with promoted. There's a whole lot of gold tone rhinestone brooches out there. How in the heck am I going to get seen if I'm on page 8? Right? So I got to make sure my stuff is getting pushed into people's faces. That's my goal. So I think a common mistake that I see for people that really hurts profitability that they think is helping their profitability is refusing offers and waiting on that right person. I get that there are items that are going to take a special person. I have some in my store too. But a lot of times we say, well, we got to wait for the right buyer on ordinary things, and there's a million of them on eBay. So you may be waiting a really long time for that right buyer. Overpricing yourself out of market because we're padding for those offers and those sales. Relying on fake markdowns to create and generate those sales because we over padded our prices. So if you over padded your prices by 20%, then you run a 20% off sale, you're not really running a sale. Customers aren't stupid. They know. And the market will tell them that based on what else is listed, what else has been sold of that exact item or that similar item. If we spend too much time hunting for the comps, that's also killing your business. If you're spending too much time researching and comping, for one, you need to do more research and comping before we bought the item to begin with. We need to be doing that research ahead of the time. Sometimes we have to look them up. But if you're spending more than a minute or two on those items, you're killing yourself. You could have listed 2 more items. So we have to get out from underneath those clutches. When we are new, sometimes we have to spend a little more time, but we have to wean ourselves off of having to find that perfect comp every time. Because if you're ever going to grow at any kind of rate, you're not going to be able to do that anymore, right? Using those excuses we hear all the time. Well, the algorithm's broken. eBay's dead today. I have lived through a few days where I do think eBay was dead because the error pages, the server down pages came up for days on end. But that's happened like once or twice since I've been selling on eBay. But once you start getting on that bandwagon of eBay's dead, eBay doesn't want us to sell things anymore. eBay's, throttling my traffic because I sold too much. Once we start singing that song, you're killing your own store. It's not eBay. I've never felt like eBay throttled my store because I was doing too good. I really haven't. I just keep selling more items. So that's kind of the gist of what I had today. And I've gotten some feedback from these classes is that people are surprised that of what they end up hearing from me, that I seem not to, like with the sourcing one, it wasn't about how do we find better items. It was basically how not to mess up our sourcing in our deals. But I guess I kind of just always think outside the box like this. So for me, the pricing model and stuff like that is more how we don't screw it up, or how I see people having detrimental issues with their business. And Jessica asked if I have my offers on automatic mode. I do not, because I did do some trial runs of that and it didn't send them always very quickly. And I did have a few glitchy things with them. So I don't love trusting eBay in certain modes. So I just like to do it myself. But I do try to send them anytime I have a batch of them. And I do the whole, like where you can send a % off to everybody. I do that because I'm not doing 1Z, 2Zs and all that stuff with it. I don't have time for that. So my whole, I guess, speech, and if I could get everybody to listen, is to quit being so precious with items that aren't so precious, because most of our items aren't unique and they're not special. They're used items that we're putting on eBay. And the key to making a lot of money on eBay is getting in and out of that item as soon as possible and buying at a good price. And I get that I'm going to get the feedback of, but I can't find good items at a good price in my area. Well, then keep looking somewhere else because they're out there, right? I sell jewelry that doesn't usually come available until the estate is formed, right? And do you think of the middle of Cornfield, Iowa, I'm just sourcing everything here? No, I have to go all over the place to try to find good items and at a good price. I find a lot of amazing items I have to say no thank you to because they aren't for me and they don't fit my pricing model. And that's okay. It hurts sometimes when I'm like, oh, that stuff was so perfect. But if it's too expensive, it's not for me because it's not going to work with my profit margins. And I don't want to be paying up to the extent that I have to constantly question myself whether I can take an offer or not, or whether I'm going to make my money back. Or to hear people say, well, I already made my money back on that. Yeah, no, you did. Everything has a price assigned to it, which should be your average cost of goods. Right? Unless you get all your inventory for free, well, then good for you. That is an amazing business model, but you better be taking those offers. There's no reason why you shouldn't. And we can force sales and we can force landslide cash flow on eBay. If you're running 30% off sales and stuff and you're not seeing a whole bunch of sales, their stuff's probably no good. It's just a fact. So I hope everybody could learn something from this. Please drop in the comments if there is a video that you want me to do in between here of a topic, or if you have any questions on the topic we went over, please ask. I'd be happy to answer for you. If you want to be able to join our calls, the Reseller Revenue Group does meet Monday through Thursday every morning at 9 a.m. Central. And we go over a lot of these topics and we pick them apart and we show real life examples. Or when somebody's struggling, we go into their store and we help them, and we can go through their pricing on Thursdays. That's all we do, is we just go through somebody that needs help with the listing, somebody that wants us to look at their store, somebody that needs help with pricing, somebody that maybe wants some, hey, I'm going to go source here. What do you guys think? What should I look for? And we're just constantly trying to make ourselves better. And there's no competition. Compete against yourselves. Quit competing against other people, because it doesn't really matter to me what other sellers are doing. It matters to me what my store's doing. So please go look at Patreon for Reseller Revenue. I also offer one-on-one coaching, and there's information about that also on Patreon.